Hi, thank you for joining us today with Be Informed with Julie Alexander. My name is Jennifer Job Gavin. I'm the co-host today on Be Informed. Today we're going to be interviewing and speaking with Senator Pat McGuire in the 43rd District. How are you doing today, Senator McGuire?
I'm great. Thanks for this opportunity, Jennifer.
Great. Thank you for taking time with us. We want to speak about some of the accomplishments that you've had here in the term, of the past term that you've had. Would you like to speak on those type of items right now?
Yes, I've sure learned a lot in my 4 years representing the 43rd District in the Illinois State Senate. And if I may, I'd like to describe the 43rd District.
Absolutely.
The short description I use is the 43rd runs from the intermodals to IKEA.
Okay.
So the south of the district is comprised of the communities of Channahon and Elwood. And then we go right up Route 53 to Rockdale, Joliet, Crest Hill, Lockport, Romeoville, Bolingbrook, and then Woodridge. Woodridge is the only part of the district that's in DuPage County.
Okay.
So it's largely Will County. And every state senate district, of which there are 59, is comprised of about 220,000 individuals. Not voters,
Okay.
220,000 residents. So that includes babies,
Okay.
people not yet registered to vote. So this has been a real education for me. I've learned that what a legislator winds up spending time on is partly dictated by the district that he or she represents. So my friend Daniel Biss, who represents Evanston and the North Shore, of course that's a district with different characteristics than our district.
Yes.
You know, this is a blue-collar district, right?
Yes.
In which manufacturing has been very important. We're a transportation hub for the state of Illinois, whereas Senator Biss's district with Evanston and the North Shore, that's heavier on higher education and a more affluent resident base, yeah, communities. So the type of district that one represents dictates what one works on, also the committees that one is placed on. And I'm fortunate to be chair of the Higher Education Committee in the Senate. So that gives me a responsibility to address the problems that are facing education in Illinois. And so higher education. So I keep in close contact with those institutions of higher education right here in our district, namely Joliet Junior College, Lewis University, and my alma mater, the University of St. Francis.
Oh, excellent. Now that you spoke on higher education, can you touch on a little bit of some of the issues and concerns that you have that have been ongoing?
Yeah, gladly, although I'm not glad to tell you what I'm going to tell you. The state's financial aid program for low-income students is called MAP, Monetary Award Program. And even in the best of years, the number of students who qualify for MAP that don't get it because the state runs out of money exceeds those who qualify and do get it. So a couple years ago, it was about 130,000 students who got MAP grants. The average grant is $2,800. And these grants go to students who attend community colleges, who attend Illinois' 9 public universities, and who attend private universities in Illinois, of which there's 60 or 70, and also some for-profit institutions like DeVry. So we know that the need for these MAP grants exceeds the available resources, because as we all know, college has gotten very, very expensive. Well, what happened last year is that as a result of the budget impasse, the MAP grants were not delivered to the students and not delivered to the schools. So schools that I mentioned, they went without the MAP grants for nearly the whole year. Well, they didn't want to turn students away who were waiting for the grants, right? So they fronted them the money. Joliet Junior College fronted millions to its students who were waiting for MAP grants. USF fronted millions. Lewis fronted millions. So obviously that put a real squeeze on the financial resources of these schools, caused a lot of problems. And also, I mean, it probably caused just unimaginable uncertainty in the lives of these students, right?
Absolutely.
They didn't know whether or not they were going to be able to afford college. So back on June 30th, the Illinois General Assembly passed a 6-month stopgap budget. That got the schools money for last year for the MAP grants, but no money for the current school year. No money for the school year that's beginning this month. So once again, schools have to decide, will they be able to front the students the money or not? Joliet Junior College, I don't know of any institution more committed to student success than JJC. They can't front the money this semester. Well, what JJC has done is admirable. They've worked with the Joliet Junior College Foundation, which has really ramped up its fundraising efforts, and JJC has directed students who should be getting a MAP grant from the state, but won't be because of the budget impasse. JJC has directed these students to the JJC Foundation, which has privately endowed scholarships. And so far the foundation has awarded $800,000 in financial aid to JJC students.
That's amazing.
So the state's not doing its job. Joliet Junior College is. So in this case, students will be able to attend, low-income students waiting for their MAP grant should be able to attend JJC for this fall, but we don't know what's going to happen in the spring. And that's true statewide. So this is a horror, this is a scandal, this is a sin, that we're driving low-income students away from college.
And I can personally attest to that because I was attending Robert Morris University at the time, and that was one of the parts of my financial aid package that was kept having trouble. The MAP grant funding was not coming through. So it kind of postponed and made me jump over to Governor State to finish up my bachelor's degree because they were actually covering the MAP grant portion of it. The president of the Governor State University decided to take that on, and I commended her for actually taking a stand on that.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
In 2008, all branches of Illinois government, Springfield state government, adopted a goal called 60 by 25. And the goal is this, that by the year 2025, which is only 9 years away, 60% of Illinois' adult workforce, people aged from 24 through 65, will have some sort of post-secondary credential. So something beyond a high school diploma. So it could be certificate in advanced welding from Joliet Junior College, it could be a bachelor's degree from USF, it could be a PhD from the University of Illinois. And obviously we need that. We need a better educated workforce to compete with other states and to compete internationally, right? So from 2008 until 2014, we were online, we were on a climb to achieve that goal of 60% of Illinois' adult workforce having a post-secondary credential by 2025. Last year we slipped back. And that was, so now, with so many students perhaps being discouraged from attending college because state financial aid isn't available to them, I'm afraid we're going to slip back even farther. So this is really bad news for the future of Illinois.
Absolutely.
But there's a bipartisan coalition of legislators. We work together to try and restore MAP grants and get this money to students and schools in a timely fashion. And so the best thing I did in the 2016 legislative session from January through June was this. And this is, I hope you'll find this interesting, how legislative action occurs. Representative Mike Fortner is a Republican.
Yes.
Republican member of the Illinois House. Taught physics at Northern Illinois University. He came over to the Senate chamber and approached me, Pat McGuire, a Democratic senator, and a former English teacher, across the aisle, across disciplines, physics to English, and Mike and I were talking. And we both said, almost simultaneously, you know, it doesn't look like we're going to get a full year budget. Maybe we need a stopgap budget for higher education. That was on Thursday. Representative Fortner, we agreed. Let's think about a stopgap budget for Illinois public universities and for MAP grant students. So Representative Fortner went home that weekend and he wrote a bill. And he brought up, he found a source of money in the state treasury and he brought it to me on Monday and we talked about it. We modified it that week. The Black Caucus got involved, some other legislators, Democrats and Republicans got involved. We had a press conference about it on Wednesday. I was the only Democrat there. On Thursday we passed it. On Monday the governor signed it. It got $600 million out the door for Illinois public universities and MAP grants. It was less than half of what needed to be sent to the schools and the students, but it was a start. And it happened because a Republican came over to the Senate and approached me. We talked about it. He did the majority of the hard work of drafting the bill, and then we modified it, you know, compromised, got input from others.
But you worked together. That shows one great example of how you can work across the party lines to get a goal accomplished.
Yeah.
Oh, a follow-up question to the $600 million grant. How was it allocated to the different universities and schools within the state of Illinois?
Well, the state of Illinois funds funds higher education in a couple of ways. One way is through the MAP grants. So the money goes to the schools and the schools apply it to the students' accounts. And the other way that Illinois supports higher education is through what are called operating grants. So for instance, the University of Illinois, all three campuses, Urbana-Champaign, Springfield, and Chicago, this year was banking on getting a $600 million operating grant from the state of Illinois. That's the largest, obviously, of the 9 public universities. And then there are approximately 40 public community colleges in Illinois. They all get some money from the state for their operating costs as well. So that bill, which I just described to you, that Representative Fortner and I worked on, that $600 million was divvied up. Some of that $600 million was operating grants for the 9 public universities. Some of that $600 million was operating grants for the community colleges, and some of it was MAP grants. So that reimbursed the schools for first semester MAP grants. That reimbursed schools, again, all the way from Joliet Junior College to Southern Illinois University to Northwestern, for the money that they had fronted first semester for the MAP. It wasn't until June 30th that we got them, that we reimbursed them the money that they fronted for second semester for MAP. And our 9 public universities got different amounts. Of Illinois' 9 public universities, the financially healthy ones are only 2, Illinois State University and University of Illinois. So they were not on the ropes this year because of the budget impasse. But the other 7 public universities were on the ropes. And this is shocking. Northern Illinois, Eastern Illinois, Western Illinois, Southern Illinois, Carbondale and Edwardsville, Governor State, Northeastern Illinois University, and Chicago State. So in the bill that we passed on June 30th, we gave a greater percentage to Chicago State, Eastern Illinois, and Western Illinois University because it was possible that they weren't going to be able to open this fall.
Well, you touched on Chicago State University, and we heard all in the media of their troubles and possibly shutting down the upcoming year in their almost summer semester going forward. How did that impact their operating and keeping their doors open?
Well, that's why we gave them a greater percentage.
Okay.
So Chicago State got, in our area, in the Chicago area, got more publicity about its the possibility that it would have to close than we heard about Eastern Illinois and Western Illinois. But there's a lot of graduates in our area from Eastern Illinois and Western Illinois. And Eastern, Western, and Chicago State were all in similar peril. So they got a greater percentage of the operating funds that I mentioned earlier. They got a greater percentage of what they were expecting this year than the 6 other state universities because those 3, Chicago State, Eastern, and Western, were in the most trouble. We're at most risk of not opening.
How are they looking going forward? Do you have to continue to do a stopgap and reimburse them every year? And how is their endowment affected?
Endowment is a key word. Endowment is a key word because one of the reasons that ISU and University of Illinois are the financially strongest schools is because they have really healthy endowments. That's not true for a school like Chicago State, you know, which educates mainly working class students, right? Even schools like Eastern and Western that educate working class, middle class students, they don't have the endowments that
other higher institutions have.
That other schools have. So I confess to being impatient with Governor Rohner about this. We need to figure out what kind of higher education system we're going to have in Illinois. And the fact that the governor vetoed the higher education appropriation bill and caused us uncertainty about whether or not students were going to get MAP grants, caused us uncertainty about whether or not staff and faculty would be laid off. He vetoed the higher education appropriation bill, yet he has not come forth with a reform plan for higher ed. So I don't know if he wants fewer state schools. I don't know if he wants Chicago State to merge with Governor State. I don't know if he wants Eastern Illinois to become a branch of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He's got to tell us.
And he has not expressed or communicated his thoughts on how his views or vision for higher education.
No. So there are members on both sides of the aisle. There are even members of the governor's administration with whom I talk about this. And some have suggested that we should look at what California, Minnesota, and Missouri have done, and that is beneath, so to speak, the flagship institution, so beneath the University of Illinois, maybe what are called the regional publics, Eastern, Western, Southern, Northern, etc. Maybe each one should have an emphasis.
Okay.
So play to their strength. So, you know, Western Illinois is renowned for its criminal justice law enforcement programs.
Yes.
So maybe that should become the concentration, the emphasis there. And if any student in the state of Illinois wants to study criminal justice or law enforcement, he or she would go there.
You recently spoke about the higher education example of breaking up the colleges maybe into 4 different specialized areas. In particular, Western Illinois University with criminal justice and law enforcement. Well, I want to take that into a segue into the prisons, Joliet Prison in particular, on how that has affected our area.
Yes. At the top of our interview, I mentioned that one thing that dictates what a legislator spends time on is his or her district. Our district, of course, we have 3 prisons. We have Illinois Youth Center on McDonough Street, now closed, but being transformed. I'd like to talk a bit about that if we have time. Of course, we have the old Joliet Prison, known as the Collins Street Prison, and then we have Stateville Correctional Center, right? Yes. Stateville is one of Illinois' 3 maximum security prisons. Illinois has 3 maximum security correctional facilities. We have Stateville, we have Pontiac, and we have Menard down in Chester, Illinois. So because Stateville is in my district, I feel a responsibility to become familiar with it. So I've been there at least 4 or 5 times with other legislators. And one of the great benefits of this job is that I have access to state institutions, right?
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, they can't tell me no
Right.
if I ask if I want to come in. And so I utilize that to bring other legislators in.
Okay.
And it's been very educational for all of us, very educational. So I've probably taken, maybe 20 different members of the Senate through Stateville in the last 3 years. And we've all learned a lot. One thing I learned is that there's no longer 4-credit college courses at Stateville Correctional Center.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to touch on, because I wanted to know how does that affect if they're not having those programs to re-entry back into the community.
Yes. Well, J.D. Ross, you know, who was president of Joliet Junior College, of course, his first job with Joliet Junior College was teaching at Stateville. Whenever President Clinton passed his welfare reform bill, and maybe that was 1996 or so, I've been told that then Congressman Newt Gingrich successfully adopted an amendment to President Clinton's welfare reform bill, which made inmates ineligible for Pell Grants, federal financial aid. So that means that it's not, it doesn't pay for colleges to offer courses to inmates. And yeah, this isn't, and I don't mean to imply that colleges are in it only for the money, but you know, they have expenses to meet as well.
Absolutely.
So that effectively ended college courses for prison inmates. And I've been told that back in the 70s, maybe even into the 80s, Lewis University offered courses, 4-credit courses at its neighbor, Stateville. So in my visits to Stateville, I've noted the small number of inmates who are taking GED courses. It's shockingly small. It's like 50 or 60 men. Back in November, I attended the graduation ceremony at Stateville's Barber College. I was told that Stateville is the only maximum security prison in the country with a Barber College. 18 men graduated that day. So there's an old theater on the Stateville grounds, a freestanding building. I walked in there. It looks like a high school auditorium circa 1950. The Stateville choir was performing. I didn't know they had a choir. So a fellow's playing the piano, there's 25 or 30 inmates singing.
Wow.
And 18 men graduated that day. 15 as barbers, 2 as technicians, and 1 as a shoe shine specialist. And the director of the barber college, I think his name is Madison, he said, no self-respecting barbershop would be without a shoe shine specialist. So I introduced myself to one of the graduates that day. And I congratulated him, and I said, tell me about the program, please. And he said, there are strict entrance requirements. He said, you have to have a GED. You can't have any disciplinary write-ups for the last 2 years, tickets as they're called. And he said it's 5 days a week, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., and I think he said it's for a year.
Wow.
Now, in my naivete, I assumed that these 18 men who were graduating from the Stateville Barber College were at the end of their bids, end of their sentences, and they'd be going home in a year or 2 to cut hair
Yes.
or be a shoe shine specialist,
Or
right?
utilize it.
So I said to the man I was talking to, when are you getting out? 2044.
Wow. So they really don't have a criteria on when you're supposed to get out, on who they're going to allocate those services to?
I haven't heard that regarding the Barber College, but I heard that informally from a former DOC official.
Okay.
When I mentioned to him the shockingly small number of men at Stateville taking GED, he so much as said that given budget restraints, that the Department of Corrections allocates job training and educational opportunities to certain types of offenders. And this is a genuine policy and philosophical question we need to grapple with. So if there's a man in there who's doing life, who's never going to be coming home, do we spend scarce state dollars on educating him, on giving him job training, or do we devote those scarce state dollars to the offender who's doing maybe a 10-year sentence and will be going home, getting out well in his 30s or 40s and 50s and still at a productive age?
Well, that takes me into the reentry for those that are getting out and may not have those training certifications underneath them. How is it affecting the community when they come out of Stateville and they go back home?
At that Barber College graduation ceremony, John Baldwin, who's the acting director of the Department of Corrections, appointed by Governor Rauner, but a man that I really enjoy working with. We have a good, productive relationship, and trust exists between me and acting director Baldwin. In his commencement address, he noted that the overall recidivism rate for Department of Corrections offenders is almost 50%. So you do time in an Illinois prison, chances are 1 out of 2 you're going to wind up back in. Except, he pointed out, for those offenders that get a GED and job training, it's 25%. So if we want to cut the recidivism rate in half, we know how to do it. Education and job training.
Well, we were talking about the prison systems, and here in Joliet, Illinois, we have the IYC that was closed for the youth males. I was told that it will be reopening and repurposed.
Well, we hope, and this is where the governor and I actually are working together. We have a common goal. So, Illinois Youth Center Joliet, of course, was closed a couple years ago by then Governor Pat Quinn, and I protested the closing of it. There was excess capacity in the state's juvenile justice system. There were more beds than we needed, which is good news that there were fewer teenage boys behind bars.
Absolutely.
So Illinois Youth Center was closed. There were about 300 people working out there. Most of them found jobs at St. Charles Youth Center, Sheridan Correctional Center, but they're no longer working here in Joliet. No longer working near their homes. They have longer commutes, and the esprit de corps that existed there among the employees was broken up. Well, almost 10 years ago, an inmate at Pontiac Correctional Center named Rasho filed a lawsuit. And Mr. Rasho alleged that the Department of Corrections does not provide adequate care to adult male offenders, inmates with serious mental illness. There are about 40,000 men and women in Illinois' prisons right now, and I mentioned John Baldwin, the director. He estimates that at least 9% of those 40,000 have serious mental illness. So to comply with Rasho's lawsuit, the state of Illinois has proposed to the judge, and the judge has approved this, that Illinois Youth Center Joliet on McDonough Street be repurposed as Mental Health Treatment Center Joliet, and that about 300 adult male offenders with serious mental illness would be brought there from prisons throughout the state. So some might come from Stateville, some might come from Pontiac, some might come from Big Muddy, some might come from Pinckneyville, and they would be taken out of the general population at the institutions where they are now, brought to Mental Health Treatment Center Joliet on McDonough Street, and given the mental health care that they need before the release.
That's absolutely great news to hear. That's something that is well needed. How many jobs do you anticipate that could bring in back into the area?
The Quinn administration's projection was about 300 jobs.
Okay.
Those would be state jobs. So there we're talking about correctional officers, kitchen staff, buildings and grounds, etc. And then the projection was that the state would hire maybe 50 to 75 mental health professionals. So psychiatrists, psychologists, nurses who specialize in mental health. So if you've noticed construction out there over the last year, for instance, there's another fence. There's a Sally Port that's been installed on McDonough Street. The parking lot's been enlarged. There's new lights. That's because the state has spent about $17 million to refurbish the facility and to get it ready for these approximately 300 adult male offenders. So the $17 million has been spent on bricks and mortar. That's good. Local tradesmen and women were put to work updating the facility. Now the governor and I need to get $38 million in the state budget to staff it and populate it.
Is that just for a year?
That's for a year. And some people have said to me, McGuire, are you crazy? You want to have 300 adult male offenders with serious mental illness behind the stadium and by Inwood Golf Course and just up the road from St. Jude's School and just up the road from, I think it's Heritage Trail School over there in the subdivision across from Junior College. So I've talked to DOC Director Baldwin about this, and he's been there, he's been on site, he's made sure that the facility is secure and safe, and I sincerely believe this would be a good investment in public safety, because these adult male offenders who will be treated there, after they serve their time, they're going to be released.
Absolutely.
And they're going to return to their communities. And if they're still suffering from mental illnesses when they get out, that leaves all of us unsafe.
Yes, and it could have been prevented with services offered at the facility.
And I've talked to law enforcement personnel about this, including people who have worked in prisons, and they have told me two striking things. One retired guard in Joliet told me that in his experience, inmates with severe mental illness are easily manipulated while they're in. And some others have told me, a Joliet police officer, in fact, who used to work in prisons, told me that a seriously mentally ill inmate makes the pressure, the stress within a prison even higher than it already is, because you don't know when the person's going to go off.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank you, Senator McGuire, for taking your time today to talk about the state of Illinois, some of our problems, the plans that you have and the state of Illinois has, and the progress that's going on and what we're looking forward to.
Jennifer, you're most welcome. I've really enjoyed this. I've spoken candidly, but I believe that's what people deserve, you know? I mean, there's enough baloney in the world, right? And I'd like to invite everyone watching to contact my district office, 2200 Weber Road, just up the hill from Dragonlight. So my district office is 2200 Weber Road, 2200 Weber Road, Crest Hill, Illinois, 60403. The number here is 815-207-4445. And you can email me through my website, which is www.senatorpatmcguire.com. And while you're on my website, I would appreciate if you'd signed up for my e-newsletter. So when the General Assembly is in session, I frequently send out e-newsletters to inform folks of what we're doing down there in Springfield. So again, I very much appreciate this opportunity to tell you what my priorities are, and I need to hear from you, because I think a person could get rich on his own, but to make progress, it's a team effort. So let's work together.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm Jennifer Job Gavin, and I'm the co-host with Be Informed with Julie Alexander. Thank you, and have a great day.
Good afternoon, Joliet. My name is Karen Ward, and I am the co-host today on Being Informed with Julia Alexander, and we are here at the Blue Ridge Legacy Restaurant on Broadway Street in Joliet, Illinois, and we are here during election season, and today we have the wonderful David Tallarico. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
We're so happy to have you here today, and we appreciate your time. Could you tell us who you are and what you're doing?
Sure. Well, my name is David Tellerico. I'm running for the Will County Board, District 10, which encompasses the west side of Joliet, really from Bicentennial Park all the way west to County Line Road. I'm married to my wife, Becky, for 22 years. She's a wonderful woman, and she's put up with a lot from me with this campaign. And I have 4 boys, David, Robert, Joe, and Tom. 2 of those, my 2 oldest, attend Lewis University. And then I have 2 younger ones, one at Joliet West and one at Troy WBO. I've been a lifetime resident of Joliet, Karen, and my family's been here since 1883. My great-grandfather built a house in the Soup Bone area on the east side of Joliet. We had all the relatives living in that Soup Bone area. And for those that are aware or not aware, that area was south of Richard Street, over in the Interstate 80 area over there. And my great-grandfather had 9 kids, built houses for all of them, and we've been here ever since.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Could you talk about how you started out when, years ago, how you started out after, through college and all that and working in Joliet?
Sure. So I graduated, I went to Joliet East High School, and they closed that, and I went to Joliet Central. I then went to Joliet Junior College, actually with Karen. I went to culinary arts back then, and we had a lot of fun at Joliet Junior College.
Absolutely.
I then went on and got a 4-year degree from University of St. Francis here in Joliet.
Okay.
And so as far as working, I worked for 20 years at the Traffic School of Behavior Change. I owned my own business. It was called Alcohol Monitors of Illinois. I did that for about 6 years. I eventually sold that business. I currently am a sales manager for 3M. 3M being the Post-it notes and Filtrete filters and things like that, command hooks. I work for 3M now.
Wow. Okay. That a wide range of work and hardworking too. Why have you decided to run for county board?
That's a great question. I had no intention of running for county board, Karen, and I've been on the Troy School Board for the last 8 years. I was on the St. Ray School Board. I was on the St. Joe's Pony Baseball Board. I was sitting on my recliner one night, and I got a message that somebody wanted me to call them. And it was somebody that I was familiar with, and I called him the next morning, and he wanted to go to lunch, and basically he said he wanted to just get to know me. And what was happening was he was vetting me for this county board seat, and he asked me if I was interested in running for it. There were 2 open positions. Both incumbents decided to retire, and there were no Republicans running on the ballot for this election. So the precinct committeeman had to caucus me and basically vote to allow me to get on the ballot, and then I had to get signatures. Karen, I'm a firm believer that God puts things in our path to challenge us and to get us moving and get us off the couch and really get going with something. And this kind of fell into my lap, and God felt I was prepared for it, and I'm going to work hard to get after it.
Very good. I have this question. A lot of people in the community, in the county, feel so disconnected from the board and feel that we're not listened to a lot and that we can't reach out and seek answers to our questions or concerns. What will you bring to the county board that is different, that's fresh, that will make us feel like we're part of the process?
That's a great question, Karen. And the biggest thing that I've been doing, and I'm going to pick up this card and you can see it a little bit, but my cell phone number's on there. I've given out about 4,000 of those cards to the residents in this district. It's out there. It's on social media. I'm not afraid to give out my personal cell phone because if I'm going to be representing the people in District 10, I want them to know that I'm a phone call away. They don't have to go through a secretary. They don't have to leave a message. They pick up the phone. They call me just with the same number that my wife calls me on to get home for dinner. And that's in addition to the phone number. It's also my email is on there. My address is on there. The 2 incumbents that, by the way, the 2 incumbents have had this seats. They're retiring, but they've had the seats for over 30 years.
Wow.
They've never knocked on my door, ever. They've never called me for my opinion. Unless I walked into one of their businesses, That's the only way that I would see that. My opinion is my job as a board member is to get out into the community. Just through this campaign, I've been at the fireworks, I've been at Bicentennial Park, I've been at the Rialto, I've been at the Taste of Joliet, I've been at all kinds of the Irish Fest, the Italian Fest, and more. And I'm not doing it just because it's a campaign. I'm doing it because I'm going to be there for the community. I want the community to see me and know how to get a hold of me.
What are some of the issues you think that people are most? I know what my issues that I'm very concerned with. But what are you hearing from people?
Another good question. I've knocked on so many doors, and I've talked to so many people about either what's going on or what kind of concerns they have. It's gone everywhere from there's somebody dealing drugs down the street, or the street needs to be repaved, or there's dead ash trees on the parkway. We've had concerns about how much it's going to cost to build this new courthouse, $200 million. How much money we're going to spend for the different things, and how we're going to be fiscally responsible. There's a concern, especially there's a concern about the Will County Health Department, making sure we can continue to fund the programs there. There's been some good people and programs that have been cut because of lack of funding. This is not the area that we need to cut from. These are people. If we've got residents that have mental health issues or addictions or problems like that, we need to help them. We absolutely need to help them. If they can't afford to go to a doctor, a private doctor, then we need to be able to provide that service at the health department. The other issue that has come up a few times is the Will County Senior Services Center. County board doesn't fund that at all. And again, these are residents that have put forth they fought in the wars for us. They ran programs and businesses for us. They're the ones that helped pave the streets, put down all the infrastructure in this city, build the bridges, and yet the Will County Board does not fund a dime to that program. I don't know how you can sleep at night knowing that. So I would love to do something with a hotel tax or something that not only can help fund that Will County Senior Services, but also the Rialto, because the Rialto is, obviously they're having a lot of problems, but it's something that we got to think outside the box. And we got to be careful with how we spend our money, but we also got to make sure that the programs that are needed for this community are still there and they're viable.
One of my questions is, how will you reach out to the state? And I know it's difficult, our budget in the state, but I think it's important for the county to work with the state as well and reach out to the legislators to get that funding back for them. So how will you approach the state?
As a county board member, I feel that I'll have influence over not only different representatives at the state level, but also in the city of Joliet. If I pick up the phone as a regular resident, it's unlikely I'm going to get a return call. It may be ignored for weeks and weeks. Maybe I'll get an email or a letter, thanks for your concern. As a county board member, I'm more likely to get a return call because now I'm an official and I'm representing people in this district. I hear about the city of Joliet and Will County. They're going to build this bridge on Humboldt Road. They're going to spend all this money for this infrastructure and to expand the interchange there. Listen, I'm all for development. That's a lot of money. You take one piece of that money. Could you imagine how much it can help the local residents with mental health issues, developmental disability issues, senior services centers? I mean, it's just we got to really think. I understand that we want to continue to develop. We need to help with the traffic flow out of the Center Point area. But, wow, that is a lot of money that they're spending on that. And just think if $1 million is moved over to one of these other programs from that, what can get done? I'm all about transparency. If we're spending the people's money, the people should be well aware of where contracts are going, who's getting paid, how much they're getting paid, in any way. As I've been running in this campaign, I looked into the different townships to see, because each township, whether it's Troy, Joliet Township, Plainfield Township, there's people that are on the staff there that get paid. I'm not against the township per se, but I want the people to know what the salaries are of these individuals. Joliet Township did not have any of that information on their website. Troy and Plainfield, it was on their front page. It was very well listed. Joliet Township, it was buried somewhere. I couldn't find it, so I had to do a FOIA request to get that information. And now that you go to Joliet Township website, it's on the front page, and I'm proud to have gotten that done. And that's the kind of thing. It's a small step in the right direction, but everybody should know where their money's going. Everybody. It's frustrated me with the Rialto not disclosing their financial records. That's not in District 10, but that's just something that bothers me, because again, transparency is important. If as a taxpayer I'm paying for somebody to plow a street or to take out the garbage or something, we should know where that contract is going, how much it's for, how long it is, and did it go out to bid? That's the other thing, is if there's there's contracts, there's certain programs in this county that the existing director put out contracts that are signed a no bid contract. Let me put it that way. That is wrong. When the best way to get a decent price is to put an RFP out, a request for proposals. You put an RFP out, and you get more people coming in to try to get that business. It's going to help drive the overall cost to the taxpayers down. Right. If you do a no-bid contract, there's no negotiation. There's no negotiation. You lost all your negotiation skills if you have one person that's willing to take on something. So there's a director of a county office that did a no-bid contract. I want to say it's about $450,000, a no-bid contract. It had to be. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. There's RFPs are good for the people. Requests for proposals, because what it will do is give the people the lowest price for the service they're looking for, and it needs to be transparent. I think the difference with my candidacy is I bleed Joliet blood. I've lived here my entire life. My family's lived here my entire life. I've gone to school here. I work here. I'm not using this as a stepping stone to higher office. I've got no interest in doing that at all. I wanna serve the people in this district, and I don't want to go after people as like a fighter. I'm not going to fight somebody. What I want to do is get the information out. I want to be respectful, because people should be treated with dignity and respect. I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat, if they're not doing their job or they're doing something wrong, I want to help fix the behavior. I want to help change the behavior. I want to notify people. So I wouldn't do it to make myself look good. No. I want the taxpayers to know where their money's going. I want them to know what their politicians, how they're behaving, and what are they doing behind the scenes. Right. Because if we can't personally be transparent, then what are we doing for the residents if we're not out there? Right. But again, I bleed Joliet blood. I've lived here my entire life, and I've got to go home to my wife and family. If I do something wrong, or if I do something inappropriate, not only my own personal family, but my friends and the people that support me, that maybe they're not even a close friend of mine, but they support me anyway. Right. I gotta face these people every day, and I want to do what's right. I absolutely want to do what's right.
The history of Joliet and Will County is very important, and I don't think that issue is protected enough, and if that makes sense, like not just with the Rialto, but all around Will County, we have such a rich history, and that, as I said, it's not being protected enough. Could you step it up when you're elected to preserve our history a little bit more?
I definitely support our history in this county. Recently, I think it was the Douglas home, Dougal home, excuse me, and that was the city of Joliet was going to tear that historical home down, and people stepped up. I think you were probably one of them that stepped up. Mary Beth Gannon stepped up, and there were several people that stepped up to stop that from happening. They took that off the books. As a county board member, historical properties around the county that are not in
the city limits is what we would be looking at, and seeing how we can preserve those things. I'm a big fan of history. Without our history, we have nothing, absolutely nothing. And it goes more than just the homes that are historical, but also farms. There's a lot of farm properties that are historical buildings, and they have a lot of there's a lot of value there, not only because it's a farm, but because of the history value. So we got to be careful with overdevelopment. I'm in favor of development, but we got to be careful with how we proceed and what we can preserve, whether it's a forest preserve, because if I'm elected on the county board, I'm also on the forest preserve board. And so those are pieces of property that forest preserve properties are great for the community, because it's for the community. It's not just for the select few that can afford to do it, or that is rich enough to do this or that. This is for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, if you're white or black, if you're anything else. And this is these are good things. So it's all part of that historical area. So we've got buildings in different parts of Joliet, but we also have farms. We've got different pieces of property that we need to preserve. And with the downturn in the economy several years ago, it allowed us to take a pause with all that crazy growth that was going on, and we can really think about, I think, a little bit better of how we can how we can plan something out and make sure it's done right and it's done respectfully to our historical roots.
So can you talk about your time at the Troy School Board and other committees you've been on?
Sure. So I've been on the Troy School Board for the last 8 years. I love the Troy School District. We have we have great schools. Our administration is great. The Troy Education Association endorsed me. They know how I work on that board. I was also on the St. Ray's School Board. I was on the St. Joe's Pony Baseball Board. I've coached baseball with my boys. I have 4 boys, and they all play baseball growing up. In fact, I have one playing now at Lewis University.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow. And would you like to talk a little bit about your platform for the people again?
Sure. I mean, we mentioned this already, but I'm about integrity, ethics, and character. I think we need to get rid of the R's and D's and treat people with how they are. I mean, if you can't vote a straight line ticket anymore to the whether you're Republican or Democrat. As a person running, have integrity, ethics, and character, and if they do, they're going to treat people with respect and get things done. That's really the bottom line. We got to make sure that we have transparency, and that with my cell phone number, you should have the opportunity to contact a county board member directly without going through a secretary, without leaving a message. Give out your cell phone number, and people have a way to get a hold of you. And that's why else would someone run for this office if you don't want to serve the people? But give some advice about somebody that's interested in running for this office, or any office for that matter. Make sure that your spouse is in agreement. My wife, she's a wonderful woman, and I asked her before I committed, and she said go for it. And so she's got my back 100%, and I love her for it. But it takes a time commitment and money. You got to do fundraising. You got to make got to go to a lot of different events and things like this. And at times it's very fun. Sometimes it's very difficult, because you ask somebody how they're doing, you really get an honest answer. And sometimes you got better be ready for that answer, because it means you got work to do. So I mean, I've talked to the Joliet Police already about some issues that I found out when I was walking. I talked to the City Streets and Sanitation Department when I found out some issues. I've had numerous conversations with people just from the things I learn when I'm walking the districts. But be prepared to walk, and I've been walking every night, walking every weekend, knocking on doors, and it's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. It gets in your blood, and my dad, Joe Tellerico, was a long time. He was very involved in politics when I was growing up, and I'm trying to follow in his footsteps. And he was a man of integrity and character. He was a Kennedy Democrat, and I admire John F. Kennedy, and I admire that integrity, character, and ethics, and you carry that with you throughout life, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay.
So if you were to look into the camera and tell the people of the county, and especially your district, anything in closing that you wanted to add?
Sure. I'll give you my cell phone number. It's 815-931-8015. If you've got issues, call me.
Thank you so much. We are so thankful to David Tellerico for joining us today, and this has been Karen Ward on Being Informed with Julia Alexander. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you and welcome to Be Informed with Jennifer Gavin, co-host of Be Informed with Julia Alexander. During this election season, we'll be interviewing numerous candidates. Today we'll be interviewing Herbert Brooks Jr., running for re-election of Will County Board, District 8. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. One of the first things we wanted to talk about with you is in regards to District 8, what area does that actually cover?
District 8, there are 13 districts in Will County, and District 8 is what we call the oldest portion of it because it includes a lot of Joliet, the south and the east side of Joliet. But it covers predominantly a lot of the east and south Joliet. We have some of College Park now west. We happen to be sitting at St. John Church, so we encompass this area, which we call Preston Heights, Sugar Creek, and Hawthorne. And then we go north Joliet to the Woodruff Road area, right up to Fairmont. At one time, Jennifer, my district did include Fairmont, but in the redistricting, I no longer have it. So now I go right up north to Woodruff Road.
Okay, excellent. Now, it is a lot of ground to cover.
A lot of ground.
In Joliet. Currently, you're the speaker on the board. Is that an appointed or?
Former
Okay.
speaker, yes. And what that is, Jennifer, whichever, we are Democrat, Republican although we are friends, with two different parties. But whichever party is in control of our Will County Board, they choose the leadership. And I am the former speaker of the board because at that time, 2 years ago, our party was in charge and the entire board chose me as the speaker of the board, and that's how that works.
So it's elected within the party, not appointed by like the Will County executive.
That is correct. You're elected by the public to the seat, and the county board selects their leadership. So it's 26 county board members, and it took the other 25. Of course, I voted for myself to vote for me as the speaker of the board at that time.
Well, definitely. Thank you very much. Looking forward to these upcoming elections, what are some of the things that you've accomplished in your past term that you weren't able to complete that you're looking forward to this term to being able to take?
Well, Jennifer, there's still much work to be done. I'm running for my third term for re-election. In December of this year, I'll be concluding 8 years. But let me begin by this. On last week, Jennifer, I was at a funeral in Channahon, Illinois. One of my very good friends, Reverend Jim Allen, passed away. And Reverend Jim Allen is a former pastor of Methodist Church in Joliet. He was a community activist, Project Pride. There's a number of things he was involved with. Well, Reverend Allen, I had to mention him because he was the one that got me on a lot of boards and involved with a lot of things. And on just last week, I was at his funeral. But he, as I began to run my third term now, he was one of the people that inspired me to run in the first place. Wow. And so I couldn't help but remembering that. And so some of the things that we've accomplished, back to your question, is that since in the last 8 years, I sat on the Will County Board. We bought the first Midwest building downtown Joliet. That's going to be the new footprint for our new courthouse. We bought the former Social Security building downtown Joliet, which is now a recorder of deeds, and so many other things. But during that time, what I like to do, Jennifer, is 26 county board members. And I like to say we all played a major part in all of the successes of the Will County story. And I'm running for my third term because I feel there is still much work to be done. Of course, we're working on a new courthouse. We're getting ready to break ground for a new Will County Sheriff facility on East Laraway Road. And so much more. And I just want to see some of those things come to pass before I retire.
Well, as you were speaking of different things that you've definitely accomplished and to come, there's very large projects coming on there. What is your outlook on economic development here in Will County and some of the other issues facing Will County?
I think it looks good because when a new courthouse comes, when a new sheriff facility comes, when new buildings come, new construction comes, the people will come. And that helps our tax base, that helps our schools, that helps, and it just snowballs on and on. Some of the things I've been recently contacted right here in my Will County Board District 8, their businesses are calling us all the time. Want a footprint here in District 8. We have not seen major construction in the east side of Joliet and some of the other areas as part of my District 8 in a lot of years. And now we begin to get those calls. I was on the phone with a gentleman just yesterday out of Naperville where they want to come here and plan a business, and it's going to be some economic development. We just been contacted and voted on a retail dollar store coming right behind me by the Speedway gas station, Route 53, and that's going to break ground next spring. So those economic developments still happening. They're happening right here, as I said, in our oldest part of Will County Board District 8, and there's new things coming, and I certainly want to be a part of that and help those things come to pass.
We definitely see a lot of growth down here in this area in the south of Joliet
Yes.
and unincorporated Will
Yes.
County area with the racetrack and other
Correct.
big boxes moving in.
Right.
Do you foresee a continual growth of
Yes.
those businesses?
Yes. And that's a very good question, Jennifer, because right now we're just a mile or so from Intermobiles just south of here, and there's many of them down there, but there's many still coming. And I think you've already heard Amazon had 2 stores there, IKEA's getting ready to open up, Mars Candy, and so the growth is continually. However, there's still room to grow. There's still vacant buildings down there, there's still acres down there, and we will soon probably be among, and we're already among the top 10 Intermobiles in America, but very soon that'll be a shorter list because Will County economically, we got Interstate 55, 80, 355, and hopefully someday the 3rd airport will come in. And as these roadways become available and businesses begin to look at the availability of this Will County area, becoming more and more attractive to them. So yes, I can see the economic growth continually.
Oh, that's great. Do you foresee also, piggybacking on that, increased growth with housing?
Yes.
And homes.
But let me add this too, Jennifer, because with the housing, with the growth in Intermobile, with the jobs, one of the things that's always been a concern of mine I'm currently working on is transportation. We have Intermobiles right down the road there, and there's families right around here in this unincorporated area that can't even get 1 mile down the road to work. And so I met with our U.S. Congressman Bill Foster, along with some in some of the meetings with RTA and PACE, and I brought those concerns to them because in the city of Chicago, they have 24-hour, 7-day transportation. You can even go to church on Sunday on a bus. Wouldn't that be nice?
Absolutely. You don't have any excuse.
Right, no excuse at all. But we want the job, but we need to provide for them to get to the job. So the transportation is another piece, Jennifer, that I'm very much concerned about, that I'm continuing working with PACE and RTA about, and I do try to go to their meetings and keep that concern on their agenda so they don't forget about the transportation to the job. What good are the jobs here if we can't get to work?
Absolutely. Well, with the city of Joliet, they're planning with having a new transportation hub, increasing transportation. Do you foresee that then we're going to meeting the needs of the growth that will be happening here in the area?
I think that'd be a fantastic start, Jennifer. So yes, they even talking about a high-speed railroad from here to Bloomington and Springfield, etc. You can get there in a matter of a minute. And I think that if we can do that, then why can't we provide bus service to downtown Joliet?
Absolutely.
Or west side of Joliet, east side of Joliet? So yes, I can see that being a very important piece of our transportation here in Will County.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any topics and concerns that you would like to bring and address to the people directly?
Well, let me just say thank you for allowing me to serve for 8 years. I was having a conversation with Jennifer right before this taping, and I was asked the question, why don't you ever go by titles? Oh, even though I'm a pastor, it's because my job is a servant, not only here at the church, but as a public servant when I'm elected. So I had to start by saying thank you to the voters and residents of all of Will County. There's over 700,000 residents of Will County now. Thank you to all of them for allowing me to serve. And I'm asking for your vote on November 8th because I want to continue that service in whatever capacity and whatever I need to do. I want you to know that I want to continue your representative and continue the work that we started until the Lord says time's up.
As the continued growth that you see happening in the Will County area and the interest that's picking up with the big boxes, for example, as you stated, Amazon, IKEA, other projects that are coming in the area, transportation, some of the key areas that people are looking for are hotels, grocery stores coming over to the east side, economic development along the corridor of the transportation, such as stated, I-80 is a great hub area to get off and on with the directing of the traffic and the semis. what do you foresee with those type of?
Yesterday, I'm a news geek. Watch a lot of news. Television is only good for me to watch the news. And I saw in the news that Inglewood in Chicago opened up a Whole Foods store. And I saw Congressman Bobby Rush and the mayor of Chicago and everybody up there celebrating, because what a major step to have that grocery store in that community. And so I was watching the news, I was saying to myself, well, why can't we? In Joliet, the east side, south side, and my District 8. I think businesses bring business. I think that once these intermobiles, once this, and there have been talk about hotels, there have been talk about grocery stores, and that's all it's been so far, is talk. I aforementioned I did get a call from a developer that wanted to develop some land right here in my district on the southeast side of Joliet for that very thing. And he was talking about a multiple, almost like a travel center. When you get off Interstate 80, right there's some land that he's very much interested in, putting stores there, Dunkin' Donuts, you name it. When you talk about a travel center, it's a multi-business there. So I do foresee those things coming. And I think that once we pass the hurdles to get those things into this southeast area of Joliet, then other businesses will come. We have talked about a grocery store in Joliet for very long. Our former mayor and former mayor before him talked about it. And yet we still haven't seen it. Now with the dollar store that's coming up, that's going to be a retail store. It's going to have some grocery, some goods, because what my colleague Denise Winfrey and I sat down with Dollar Tree and negotiated was that there are some fresh fruits in there. And they will be doing a limited. However, that's not a Whole Food store. That's not a Jewel. That's not a grocery store chain. So those things are still on the agenda. Those things are still things that need to be developed, and we're still talking about it.
That's absolutely great. I know the people in your area are definitely excited to see what's going to be happening in the upcoming years.
Yes, I'm excited.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Brooks, for taking time with us today to speak on these several issues. Mr. Herbert Brooks will be running for re-election, third term in Will County Board District 8. My name is Jennifer Jobe Gavin, co-host with Be Informed with Julia Alexander. Thank you for your time, and it was a pleasure